Hello everybody and welcome back to the channel. Today I thought we would do something maybe a little bit different to normal, maybe a little bit more fun. What I want to do today is I want to do a tier list of the armies of Black Powder. Now, for those of you who don't know, and there may be quite a few of you out there, a tier list is quite popular with computer games and things like that. And it's quite popular for things like Warhammer 40,000 or Warhammer 30,000, which I've been watching a lot of recently. So that's what has inspired this video. And what it is it grades the different armies from worst to best with putting them into a tier, as the name would suggest. Now, the start off, the tier goes to A, B, C, D. So A being the best, D being the worst, but there are an additional category, one at the top, one at the bottom. You've got S tier, that's super powered, that's really, really good, that's beyond the best. And then you've got F, which is fail tier, which is absolutely terrible. Now, I should say that in Black Powder, this is a bit of fun, okay? So I'm not saying that if you've got an army on this list that I've classed as D tier, you're going to get absolutely crushed by an army that I say is S tier. You probably are, but not necessarily. And I should also point out as well that this is not going to be historically accurate. Now, that said, I may well do a list of the historical tier list as well. Let me know if that is something that you would like to see. As I say, this is just going to be a little bit of fun. So we're going to start up. I'm going to put on the screen here. Now, I always do these videos assuming that people aren't watching. The way I consume YouTube is I tend to either listen to it on my way to work, so my phone's in my pocket, or I'll have it on my laptop or my phone while I'm painting or doing something else, cooking or something like that. So normally, the pictures don't really mean much to me, but I'm going to pop the tier list on here, just so you can refer back to it. You can maybe even screenshot it at the end. Let me know what you think. So we're going to start off with F tier. Now, as I say, F tier is fail tier. These are the armies that are severely lacking. And what I'm going to do is I'm going to explain my reasoning for putting the armies where I put them. This is just my opinion. If you disagree with me, and I'm sure you will, then please let me know in the comments down below. But I'm going to start off with F tier. Now, I should say as well, these are in order as well. So the first one that goes in F tier is the worst. That's the bottom of F tier. And then if there's more, then they get progressively less F, but they're still fail armies. So I'm going to start off with the kingdom that everyone loves. Murat himself finally getting what he deserved, and it absolutely was what he deserved. We're going to start off with an army from the Clash of Eagles, the Kingdom of Naples. Now, the Kingdom of Naples in Black Powder are particularly terrible. In fact, you know it's not going to be good when their entry in the book has a quote from Napoleon that says, "These troops are no better than none at all." You're probably not going to be having a good time. But that said, they look awesome, as you would expect from Murat's guys. And if you are wanting to bulk up your coalition army or your French army, then they can give you some cheap troops. But why are they at the bottom of the list? Well, it's quite clear, really. They are very, very poor. Their infantry have a hand-to-hand of 5. They have a shooting of 2. That's among the worst shooting and hand-to-hand for infantry in the game. And their morale is 5+ as well. So they're also got 1 less save than most units. In addition to that, they're unreliable. They're wavering. They have poor mixed formation, which doesn't mean anything in 2nd edition. And they're lacking initiative. So all of their special rules are negative. And they don't even have access to the pas de charge, which some French and associated troops will have. Now, it's not all bad. They do have some guard infantry. Their guard infantry have the stats of just a regular unit. And they have a small unit of Marines they can take, which actually their stats are the same as pretty much any small infantry unit. And again, one of the things that they do have is they do have access to light and heavy cavalry. Now, this is something that we're going to look at later on. This is going to be a big indicator of where nations are. But they do have, as I say, access to light cavalry. They are unreliable, they are wavering, and they've got morale 5+. So similar to Cossacks, really. They've only got a hand-to-hand of 5 as well, which means if they go up against any other cavalry, if they go up against allied cavalry in particular, they are going to have a very, very sad time. Their heavy cavalry, they have heavy cavalry D1, so they're dragoons effectively, with 8 attacks, which is not terrible, and they've got a morale of 4+. So their heavy cavalry are effectively the same as most other nations' dragoons. They've got some artillery as well. That's unreliable or wavering. Although the thing is with them, they've only got a stamina of 1. So I guess it means they're going to test as soon as they take a casualty as well. Although I think the artillery have to test when they're shaking anyway. So it doesn't really matter about the artillery. In fact, that's a way that you could maybe ally in some cheap artillery if you get a chance, because that negative is going to take away from the points, but it's not really going to matter. But anyway, so in last place, and last place for rules, not last place for uniforms, because their uniforms are pretty sweet, particularly the Lancers. They are, I'm afraid, very firmly where Murat belongs, in F tier. That's a controversial statement, I'm sure. Okay, so that's the first entry, the Kingdom of Naples. I've bagged on them quite a lot, and they are not alone in F tier. There is one other nation that is in F tier. Now, I have to say, actually, these guys I've put at the very top of F tier. They're sort of peeking into D tier a little bit. They're just sort of nosing into D tier, and that is the Army of Spain. Now, one of the reasons I will say that they are just slightly nosing into D tier is because I think it's a little unfair. The rules that are presented for them in Albion Triumphant Volume 1 are very much a, shall we say, a sharp's eye view of the Spanish. The Spanish were not a great army in the Napoleonic Wars. I'm not going to pretend otherwise. The individual soldiers were not great, and the army itself was particularly poor. I'm thinking of things like logistics, supply, all that kind of stuff that takes place off the battlefield. Training, that was particularly poor. Now, looking at their stats, they are very similar to the Neapolitans. I always want to call them Napolese. I don't know why. They're very similar to the Neapolitans. They have a morale of 5+. They have a hand-to-hand of 5, shooting of 2. They are wavering and they're unreliable. So they're actually quite similar to the Neapolitans in that regard. They also have a waver. Did I say they have a wavering and unreliable? Well, they do. So far, so good. They're the same as the Neapolitans. Why do I put them slightly higher? Well, one of the things that they have is they have more of an access to different kinds of cavalry. So they have guard heavy, heavy cavalry, lancers, guard light, and light cavalry. So you've got quite a good mix there. Now, the guard cavalry and the heavy cavalry are basically the same as anyone else's regular medium cavalry. In fact, I think they're slightly worse than French dragoons. So they're not great, but they're better than not having them, I suppose. One of the units I've talked about a lot in the past is the Spanish cuirassiers. They're not in the rules, which is a bit of a shame. I don't really understand why. I'm not sure what I would give them. Maybe the same stats as the heavy cavalry, but with maybe heavy cavalry D3, or perhaps get rid of the wavering. Maybe not give them an extra save. That might be a bit too strong. But wavering, get rid of that to, represent the fact that they're armoured, they're a little bit more confident in their abilities. Now, I should take this opportunity also, if there are any weird edits in here, I've got a terrible cold at the moment, so it might be that I'm just pausing to sneeze, cough, blow my nose, all that kind of good stuff. So there's weird edits, that's probably why. So that's the Spanish. Now, there is also rules for militia infantry, which I kind of think is supposed to represent guerrilla. They're not great rules. Unfortunately, I think with the Spanish, it's not so much that they're bad. Historically, it's more that the rules writers haven't really given them a fair shake of the stick, shall we say. I think perhaps they've exaggerated the weak parts of the Spanish army. Now, that said, don't get me wrong, I'm not saying that they were all-conquering like, you know, juggernauts, but they're certainly not great. And I think, unfortunately, in black powder wise, you're gonna really struggle to win with them. That said, and this is a change to the Neapolitans. They also have very strong allies in the British and the Portuguese, and we'll come on to those guys in a bit. So we have headed out of fail tier, and we are now going to D tier. Now, D tier is where the sort of the worst of the standard armies are going to lie. Now, I've actually only got one army in D tier, and to be honest, I think it's I think historically it's probably deserves to be in D tier. I think it deserves to be less than average. I'm going to say that C, sort of C to B, is kind of the average army. That's what I'm trying to think of here. So D tier is one that's you know, quite a bit worse than the standard. And the one army that we have in D tier is the Kingdom of Westphalia. Now, to be fair, I think these guys are probably a high D tier. I don't think they're as bad as the Neapolitans or the Spanish. I think they are a step above them. And that's because they have quite a wide range of troops. Now, the troops that they do have are not fantastic. They're regular line infantry. Again, they have the dreaded hand-to-hand of 5, but they do have 3 dice when shooting, and they do have the morale save of 4+. So those are, you know, they're worse in hand-to-hand, but they're the same as shooting and receiving casualties as anyone else. So that's all good. They do lack initiative, however, and this can be a problem. It means that you effectively have to pay a tax on your troops, because you're going to need to buy those strategy rating 8 or maybe even strategy rating 9 commanders to make sure your units can go where you need them to go. So if you've got a 50 points, say you're spending on a commander of, let's make it easy, of 5 units, you're effectively paying an extra 10 points per unit there. Because they're lacking initiative, it really is worth looking at investing in those extra strategy rating commanders. Now, they do have a wide variety of troops, and this is why I put them at the top of D tier. I may be being a little bit harsh, but someone's got to go in D tier, so it's these guys. They do have guard. They've got guard infantry, and their guard infantry are actually pretty good. They've got 8 attacks in hand-to-hand combat, shooting 4, so they've got 4 attacks there. Then they also have morale of 4+, and a stamina of 4, because they are large units. So they're pretty handy. The Jaeger Carabineers have all your Jaegery goodness. They've got rifles, they've got sharpshooter. They're all good. The Kingdom of Westphalia is basically Brunswick. The King of Brunswick, or the Duke of Brunswick rather, he fled the country, went back to England. Check out my videos on the Brunswickers for that, a series which is yet to be finished. But yeah, so it's basically Brunswick. So you're looking at a German state. They've got all the Jaegery goodness and the guards and all that kind of stuff that you would expect from a German state. They've also got 2 different types of cavalry. Well, I've actually got 4 different types of cavalry. They have the Garde du Corps, the Westphalian Garde du Corps. I've actually painted some of those. They're quite cool models. You can convert them out of Carabineers, French Carabineers. You can make them quite easily. They've also got a Garde Chevalier. Now, the Garde Cavalry and well, they're a tiny unit, the Garde du Corps. So, you know, they're not going to do a huge amount. The Chevalier are just a normal standard Hussar unit. They're okay. They've got reliable, so that's a nice bonus. And they can also have Cuirassiers as well, and which are standard Cuirassiers, although they only have a morale save of 4+. So they're more akin to heavy dragoons, but they do have the heavy cavalry D3 special rule. So they're slightly better than dragoons. You could probably put them in against French dragoons and expect to win. If you put them in against French Cuirassiers, or say Russian Cuirassiers, you're probably going to have a sad time. they're very much, they need to stay in their lane or fight someone that's slightly weaker than them. So, yeah, that's the Cuirassiers. Hussars, exactly the same as everyone else's Hussars. 6 hand-to-hand attacks. Morale save 4+, stamina 3. Marauder, they're just standard guys. The lacking initiative is a big problem for them, though, because it's going to make it more difficult for them to either get those charges or get themselves out of trouble. So that is a concern. They also have artillery as well. So you can either... they're basically just the same as French artillery. So, yeah, there you go. That's the Westphalians for you. They're not terrible. I actually think... So the F-tier armies, I think you put them on the table against any of the other armies, including the Westphalians, you are going to struggle. These guys, I think you can put them on the table and have a good game. I think it's going to be a tough battle for you, but I don't think it's an impossible victory like it would be with the other two. So, D tier, just a solo occupant of that one, looking very lonely there. That is the Kingdom of Westphalia. So we're moving up now into C tier. Now, this is where the majority of the armies are going to be. B and C tier are... That's where you want the chunk of your armies. That's the middle ground. Ideally, you want to be half in C, half in B. That means you're a perfectly balanced army. So, at the bottom of C tier. Now, this is going to be a little bit controversial, actually. And it's so controversial that I'm actually changing this one on the fly. I had another nation marked down here, but having just had a little bit more of a thunk about it, I've decided to swap them around. And at the bottom of C tier, I've actually gone for a bit of a fan favourite. I've got an army of them, and that is the Kingdom of Bavaria. Now, some of you are going to be hopefully raising an eyebrow, Roger Moore style, at the Kingdom of Bavaria being the bottom of C tier. So, as I say, these are the mid-range armies, but I think the Bavarians are the bottom of the mid-range armies. Now, why is that? Well, we've got... There's an excellent quote. I'm going to read out the whole quote from the Clash of Eagles book. The Bavarians, who report 4,500 present, consume 9,000 rations a day, do not put 3,000 men in line, and what is more, this debris doesn't give a damn. They are satisfied to conduct themselves passively in action. Officers and men work together at fouling things up, so as have to have an excuse for doing nothing. That's from General Latreille de Lorence. So, not a fan of the Bavarians, I think it's safe to say. Now, why are the Bavarians in bottom place? Now, I'm open to people arguing that they shouldn't be. I'm open to people arguing this because I didn't have them as bottom of C tier until quite recently. Literally just before I started recording. Now, the reason is they have a sort of a universal special rule, really, for all of their infantry, and that is, we've seen it a few times before, that is lacking initiative. So that, I think, is going to be a big problemo. But there is a line at the bottom of their description which may save them and may boost them up quite high up the C tier. But we'll come back to that. So, stats-wise, as you would expect, they got 6 attacks in hand-to-hand combat, 3 for shooting, 4+ for morale, 3 stamina. Exactly the same as standard line infantry. We're out of D tier and below. We're in the standard troops now. So that's what you would expect. Light infantry, exactly the same, but they have sharpshooter. Now, of course, what the plus for the Bavarian line infantry is they have mixed rifle formation, which is very nice. The downside is they lack initiative. So that's sort of, gives with one hand, takes with the other. Now, the reason why I've put these guys down at the bottom of C tier, more than anything else, including more than lacking initiative, is their cavalry selection. They have a very, very poor selection of cavalry, only able to have chevalier. Spit my false teeth out there. Now, they had 4 regiments of these dragoons, effectively. They're sort of dragoon/hussars. The rules given to them here are more hussar-based. Okay, fair enough. they're effectively hussars. They've got 6 attacks in hand-to-hand combat, morale 4+, marauder special rule, and a stamina of 3. So they're effectively hussars. This means that if you have your Bavarian army and your opponent rocks down with some medium cavalry or some heavy cavalry, you are in trouble. You are in El Maximilian trouble, because you haven't really got anything to go against them. Artillery, you've got a fair amount of artillery. That's not too bad. They can certainly help you out against heavy cavalry, but short of artillery, you are going to struggle. That is why I have moved the Bavarians down into last place of C tier. Now, there is one line under the Bavarian infantry. So I'm looking on page 64 of Clash of Eagles here, and it says, Bavarian infantry are classed as lacking initiative. They cannot make initiative moves unless it is to change formation or facing and to charge the nearest enemy to their front. So it's not necessarily the end of the world. They can still do a little bit of stuff. But, yeah, okay, whatever. Underneath that line, however, it says, Bavarian infantry follow the French infantry special rules. Now, if that includes the pas de charge, then these guys leap up the ranking. If it doesn't, then I think they're in their place at the bottom of C tier. Let me know if you think that should include the pas de charge or not. I don't see why it wouldn't, but then having said that, why would it? So, I don't know. In any other nation where they have the pas de charge, it says that they do. This one just says they follow the French infantry special rules. So, I don't know on that one. Let me know what you think in the comments below. As I say, I think that's a big factor for whether the Bavarians stay at the bottom of C or whether they move up to maybe the top of C, possibly even nudge into B tier. Although I think the lack of cavalry means that for me, they're firmly stuck in C tier. So that is the Kingdom of Bavaria. Now, next up, we have another singular Germanic state, or kingdom in this case, and it is the Kingdom of Saxony. Now, I really like the Kingdom of Saxony. This is not a personal thing that I don't like the nation or anything like that. They're grenadiers that are made by, is it Black Hussar Miniature, I think, who makes them? Are absolutely awesome. They've got the red coats and the big bear skins. They look like, the British Guards, but in Napoleonic times. They're fantastic. I absolutely love them. So, so Saxony is not, it's not that I don't like them, but they are down here because they are very limited in their selection of troops. Not as limited as the Bavarians, but limited nonetheless. So when we look at the Saxon special rules, we can see that their line and light infantry are lacking initiative as well, and their musketeers, their line infantry, are unreliable. So this, for me, is why I initially put them below the Bavarians. That unreliable is a big one for me. They have the same lacking initiative as the Bavarians do as well. They do have a wider variety of troops, though, and that's why they've gone above the Bavarians for me. Now, that said, if the Bavarians get the pas de charge, then they're going to be above the Saxons. So we're assuming for now that they don't. It says here, for instance, Saxon infantry follow the French infantry special rules. They do not have pas de charge. So maybe that means that the Bavarians do. So, I'm happy to have these guys underneath the Bavarians, as it were. So, the Musketeers, unreliable, lacking initiative, not great. They've got the basic stat line, 6-3-4-3, that you would expect. So that's 6 hand-to-hand, 3 shooting, morale 4+, stamina 3. So if I go 6-3-4-3, that's what I mean in future. So that's all well and good. They can have combined grenadiers, that's like Austrian style. They can have Lifeguard Grenadiers, who are just cool as balls. I really, really like the Lifeguard Grenadiers. They are effectively the same as the British Guard. Not quite as good as the British Guard, but they're close. They are hand-to-hand 8. They've got shooting 3, morale 3, stamina 3. Now, that 3+ morale is not to be sniffed at. That's very impressive, especially as they have access to a column of attack, which makes that a 2+ save. So yeah, the Saxon Grenadiers are certainly not to be sniffed at. Very scary unit. They also have Jaeger with the rifles, which is tasty, And they have a wide selection of cavalry. They, of course, have the Saxon heavy cavalry, which are their cuirassiers. They've got chevaliers, which are more like dragoons than the Bavarian ones. The Bavarian ones, you remember, they had 6 attacks. Well, the Saxon ones have 7. They also have hussars as well. Now, they're a large unit of hussars, which gives them 9 attacks. Now, that's 1 more than they would normally have as well. Normally, you'd expect them to have 6 attacks, plus 2 for being a large regiment, so you'd expect them to have 8. I don't know if that's a typo, but hey, they've got 9. And you've also got Uhlans as well, which is something, the first time we've seen Uhlans in this game, and it's a reason, there's a reason why. Uhlans, I think, are an excellent unit. They're weirdly written in Black Powder. I think the Lancers are more written for later, like Victorian era Lancers, the Lancer rules. I don't think they're great for Napoleonics. I think the Lancers should be better against cavalry in Napoleonics than they are. But anyway, they're better than Hussars anyway. Again, they've got 8 attacks, and that's for a standard unit as well. So the Saxon Uhlans, pretty tasty. Not bad at all, I don't. And additionally, of course, there are the Saxon Garde du Corps, which we've not spoken about. Now, they're not in the section for the Saxons in the book. It's a bit weird. I can kind of see why. They fought in a brigade alongside some Polish cuirassiers, so I can see why it's a bit of a weird place of where to put them, I suppose. But yeah, the Saxon Guard Corps also not a unit to be sniffed at. They are 9 attacks in close combat. They have a 3+ save. They only have morale 3, but they are reliable. And they are superbly drilled as well. So they are amongst the best non-major nation units out there. And in fact, they're a lot better than even some of the major nation units. Big fan of the Saxon Guard du Corps. Do not underestimate them. They're also phenomenal models as well. So I'm surprised that Victrix haven't done them yet, actually. They've done some of the more obscure ones. I'm surprised the Saxon Guard du Corps and Saxon Cuirassiers haven't been on their list to do. But who knows? Maybe next time. Or maybe the Perrys might be doing it. We shall see. So that is the end of the Saxons. For our next entry in C tier, we are not going far. We are sticking with the Confederation of the Rhine. We are going to an army which I had very little knowledge about until I acquired a range of figures to print from them. We are talking about the Kingdom of Württemberg. Now, this is quite an unusual one. I've got these as the highest of the Confederation of the Rhine. There's going to be something that I talk about after this. But yeah, these guys I've got as being the best army in that area. And it's for the simple reason that these guys do not lack initiative. These are initiative-enabled. These guys are initiativing all over the place. So that's why I have kept them as the highest of the Confederation of the Rhine troops. Now, a bit of an interesting one, because they also have quite a small roster of troops. But there are figures out there, and there are rules for using a wider range of troops in the Under Eagles to Glory pack, and that is because Piano Miniatures make such a fantastic range of them that it would be a shame not to use them all. Now, I think it would be safe to say that were the Bavarians have the Pas de Charge, they would go above these guys. But if we're assuming they don't, then the Kingdom of Württemberg gets the gold when it comes to the Confederation of the Rhine troops. They have the usual 6-3-4-3. They don't lack initiative, so that's a nice change. And they have musketeers as the line. Their light infantry have... now, they have muskets, but they should really have rifles. So the Jaegers, now they do have rifled muskets. So that's quite tasty. They're also Elite 4+ as well. So they're very unlikely... Well, I mean, they're not unlikely. They're 50-50 of whether disorder is just going to be shrugged off or not. So they've got to be shot in the first place. It's difficult to shoot them because they're in skirmish order. They've got sharpshooter coming back at you. And they're also firing at rifle range with at least 2 of their shots as well. So a scary, scary proposition. And the cavalry that they have are Württemberg Chevalier or Jaegers. Now, the piano miniatures do models for both of these, and these are just standard hussars. 6 for hand-to-hand, 4 plus for morale, 3 stamina, special rule is marauder. So, just standard hussars. Now, if you are using... Well, I'll talk about it in a second. They also have their own artillery as well, which is nice. Not all of the Kingdom of... the Confederation of the Rhine troops have their own artillery. It's nice that the Württembergers have it intrinsic, but it doesn't necessarily add or take away anything from their army as a whole. And that is because all 3 of those armies, they all fall under the Confederation of the Rhine. Now, I'm going to put the Confederation of the Rhine here. There's a very good argument to have them higher, maybe even in B tier, just purely because of the huge range of troops they have available to them. So if you want low quality hordes of troops, you can do that. If you want fewer elite troops, you can have that, or anything in between. You want Cuirassiers, you've got Saxons. Garde du Corps, you've got Saxons. If you want mounted Jaegers, you've got the Württembergers. If you want Chevalier, you've got the Bavarians. It's all over there. You've got a load of different opportunities and choices. So I'm putting the Confederation of the Rhine here for ease of use, but I think if you combine all of those armies, you're probably looking at B tier, and I might give them a little bit of a shout out when we get to B tier. But if you're having the individual armies, then they are towards the bottom of C tier. Now, we're coming to the final nation for C tier, and it's going to be at the very top of C tier, possibly nudging into B tier. And I think this is going to surprise some people that I've got them this far down. It is the Duchy of Warsaw. Now, the reason is, again, it's important to know I'm looking at their army list just for Polish units, or Duchy of Warsaw units, I guess. And the thing here is they do lack the full spectrum of troops. So, for instance, cavalry-wise, they have both Ulan and Chasseurs. Now, we do know that the Polish had Cuirassiers. They had them with the Saxons at Borodino, for instance. So, Saxons are available to them. It's just they're not in their army list. So, that's why I'm talking about them here. And I've popped them in C tier. Now, they are the very top of C tier, I must point out. Infantry-wise, they've got everything that you would expect. They've got 6-3-4-3, the usual. They have tough fighter versus Russians, which is, a nice little bonus, you never know. And they have listed that they have the pas de charge. So that is super handy. Cavalry-wise, as I say, they've got Ulan, very nice. And they have horse chasseurs as well. So they don't have the Cuirassiers that they have in the rounded list. Again, we're looking at the Confederation of the Rhine list for the Polish Cuirassiers. But they are an army of more elite troops than we've seen so far. They're not the most elite army on this list, but they are more up there. Now, they can also take troops from the Vistula Legion, which is not a terrible idea. They have Elite 5+, and they have tough fighters versus everyone. So the Vistula Legion, definitely worth looking at. But the Poles, they're just lacking that breadth of troops that really makes them into a B tier army. With allies, they could definitely be top of B tier. But I think as they currently stand, I think they have earned their place at the top of C tier, nosing into B tier, I think. I think for me, they are one of the best middle armies. They are one of the most average armies. I don't mean that in a bad way. I mean that in a way of, I think they're quite well balanced. Okay, so now we are moving into B tier. Now, these are the ones that I think are slightly above average. And we're going to start off with an army that is very near and dear to my heart. It's one that I've been working on for some time now. And in the bottom of B tier, we have the Kingdom of Italy. Now, the reason why they are at... the reason they're in B tier at all is they're basically French. They're basically the French army. They're just painted white. They've got the pas de charge. They've got all the good stuff that you would want. They've got the standard 6-3-4-3 profile. They've got light infantry. No rifles, though, so that is something of a downside to them. But they've got that. They've got a wide variety of infantry types. They've got guard. They've got light guard. They've got guard grenadiers. They've got guard chasseurs, or V-lights as they are here. They've got young guard as well. They've got a full roster of infantry, possibly minus riflemen. That's a bit of a shame. Cavalry-wise, in the list now, this is what hurts them. They've only got chasseurs à cheval. Now, the Italian army actually did have dragoons. I believe they also had cuirassiers as well. But for Clash of Eagles, they have none of those things. They only have the chasseurs à cheval. Now, just looking at the page here, for our black powder purposes, your statistics shown for Guard Dragoons on page 75 of the Dragoon Regina. So let me see who they are. So is that the Guard? Alright, okay, that's the Guard d'Honor and Guard Dragoons. So they do have rules for Guard Dragoons, but I'm pretty sure they have Line Dragoons as well. So they are a solid army. They aren't going to be any higher than B tier, though, because while they've got the basics covered for infantry, the full basics covered for infantry, they don't have much variety in cavalry. So that's the reason why they are the bottom of B tier. Now, second in B tier is an interesting one, because this is an army that I have very much praised in its entirety, but I think in Black Powder it suffers, and I think that's reasonably accurate historically. In fact, I think the Black Powder might help them a little bit too much. And the second place, so second to bottom in B tier, I am going to put the Kingdom of Prussia. Now, this is going to cause a lot of consternation, I'm sure. I know they've got a lot of fans out there who love their Prussians, and that's fair enough. So why am I placing them not low? They're still high. They're not like Naples or Spain. But of the major nations, if we don't include Spain, I've put them at the bottom. Why is that? Well, it comes down to the choice of units. Once again, similar to the Italians, they've got a moderate spectrum of infantry. There's no guard. The Prussian Guard didn't leave Berlin. That's a problem for me. That's why they're down towards the bottom end of B tier. They're still better than the Confederation of the Rhine individual nations, because they have some choice. You've got things like musketeers, or you've got fusiliers. So you've got the very basic choice of line infantry and light infantry. But in addition to that, you've got some decent special rules as well. You've got the sub-commanders that Chris used to such devastating effect at Clash of Eagles 2. Under Eagles to Glory 2. And you've got closed squares as well, which make them very difficult to stop. They're closed square means that they can basically carry on going in an attack column. They're an interesting one. They also can be upgraded to Tough Fighter pretty much across the board. Now, I've changed it from 1 point to 5 points, because 1 point is absolutely ludicrous. There is no reason why you wouldn't pay 1 point to make your troops Tough Fighter. So I've changed that to 5 points. 7 points if you're a large battalion, because again, you had no difference whether you were a large battalion or an average one. So anyway, their standard infantry are 6-3-4-3, as you would expect. Their Fusiliers, same, but they can skirmish. They've also got sharpshooter as well, so very tasty. They do have some cheap mass troops as well. They can take the Landwehr, or they have elite skirmishers in the Jaeger. So they've got no guard, but apart from that, they've got quite a good spread of infantry. One of the things that puts them down here as well is not only do they not have any guard, they also don't have any grenadiers. So that, for me, is a bit of a no-no, a bit of a naughty. Cavalry-wise, they have absolutely tons of the stuff, but it's all light cavalry. There were Prussian cuirassiers, but they didn't take part in the 1812 campaign, and they also didn't take part in the 100 Days. So unfortunately, there are currently no rules for cuirassiers or Prussian dragoons. So just going by the books here, they are very limited in their cavalry to hussars and uhlans. Sorry, no, the dragoons do have the rules in Albion Triumphant Volume 2. Sorry, I'm lying there, but there are no rules for cuirassiers or indeed the garde du corps. Now, the dragoons are standard dragoons, hand-to-hand 8, morale 4, stamina 3 plus, heavy cavalry D1. Yep, that's all good. Uhlans, 7 attacks, morale 4, stamina 3 plus, lancer, marauder. Yep, that's all good. And hussars, 6, 3, 4, 3, and marauder. So they are exactly the same as anyone else's cavalry. They also have access to Landwehr cavalry, who are slightly worse than regular Uhlans. So, yeah, cavalry-wise, they've got a decent mix. They've got a good amount of light cavalry, but if they come up against heavies, if they come up against French cuirassiers, or even like Russian cuirassiers, then they're probably going to be in to have a sad time. Artillery-wise, they've got plenty of that. So it's all good. That's why I put them in B tier. Now, remember, B tier is slightly above average, so they've got that as well. The other problem the Prussians have is a lack of allies as well. Now, we're going to come on to a nation in a second that is perhaps an unusual one, and I am willing to accept I've maybe put them a little bit high, but it's purely down to their options for allies. And in fact, you know what? I won't bury the lead anymore. Let's get into it. The next army in B tier I've got is the Kingdom of Portugal. Now, that's an unusual one, I know, and that's because it's basically the same arguments as I've just had about the Prussians. So their infantry are pretty good. They're the same as everyone else's. They've got they've got 6, 3, 4, 3. That's all well and good. They've got their light infantry. They've got cazadores. It's all good. But there is a difference. The Portuguese infantry is amongst the best infantry in the game because they have steady line. Steady line is a phenomenal special rule. It effectively gives you, 9 attacks in combat. The reason being you get your 3 shooting and then you get to charge. So even when you're being charged, you still get to hit on 3s. Okay, it can pull you away from your supports. That's a tactical thing. But yeah, it can be such a strong special rule. Now, they don't have first fire. That's a bit of a shame. But apart from that, they're pretty strong. They've got a sharpshooter on their light infantry. They have a sharpshooter on their riflemen. And they are, however, the downside for them, and this is where, again, you can swap them with the Prussians if you want, their cavalry is very poor. They only have what's called regular Portuguese cavalry. That's it. They've got a hand-to-hand of 6. They've got morale of 4, stamina of 3, but they are wavering. Now, this is not a problem because they can be allied effectively, and so can the Spanish, admittedly, but they have allies available to them for the British. Now, the British cavalry, I have said many times in this, is, for my money, far and away the best cavalry in the game. So, if we are considering them alongside the British, I'm going to put the Portuguese ahead of the Prussians. If we're going to consider them just on their own, then I think we can probably put the Prussians ahead of the Portuguese. So, that's you pays your money, you takes your choice on that one. I also think the Portuguese look cooler than the Prussians as well, so so there is that. But no, joking aside, they're a much more limited roster, but what they've got is all solid, except the cavalry, but they've got access to really strong cavalry. Speaking of people who have access to really strong cavalry, we are going to go for the last nation in B tier. This is the very end of B tier, the very tippy-toppy of B tier, possibly going into A tier, but I don't think so. And I'll talk about reasons why I think they are a cut below the A tier armies. And that is, of course, the main baddies of the Napoleonic Wars. It is the French. Now, I do not think the French are a very good army in black powder, unfortunately. Well, no, that's not true. I think the French are a good army in black powder because I put them at the top of B tier. But I think of the major nations, they are perhaps only slightly better than Prussia. Now, they have some excellent infantry special rules. Pas de charge is superb. Pas de charge for me means that I never pay for a brigade commander. I'll take the strategy rating 7-1 because 99% of the time he's going to be getting +2 to his strategy rating. He's going to be strategy rating 9. So for me, I save on my troops that way. I might take an 8 occasionally, but it's very, very rare. Cavalry-wise, they have every single type of cavalryman you can think of. You want light cavalry, you got them. You want medium cavalry, you got them. You want heavy cavalry, oh boy, you got them. So there's a huge amount of different cavalry options there. Now, one thing that I will say is that I am discounting the Imperial Guard here. In the Clash of Eagles book, they have their own separate army list. So I'm kind of discounting the Guard for now. So yes, the army of Imperial France is at the top of B tier. The Pas de Charge is a very, very strong special rule, but it is situational. You have to be in column of attack in order to get it, which means that effectively you have to be attacking. If you're defending and you're in line, you're no better than a Prussian line or what we just looked at, a Bavarian line. So that's why I've popped them down in B tier. Also, their cavalry is wide-ranging. You've got lancers, you've got hussars, you've got cuirassiers, dragoons, carabineers, all of that good stuff. But it's all pretty average. The France is the Space Marines of Black Powder. They do everything averagely, and that's cool. That's where you want the French to be. A lot of nations either copied them or made their armies directly to oppose the French. So I think having the French at the top of B tier is absolutely fine. I think it's good for the game that they are. But when you're using that French army, it can sometimes feel that you're a little bit underpowered. This is a huge problem I find with a lot of war games, is you finally get into contact. I mean, I was playing Team Yankee recently against the British. I slogged across the table. My BMPs are being blown up left, right, and centre. I finally get into combat, and the Brits are better than me in combat as well. All right, okay, yeah, fantastic. Cheers. What a great game. It'd be a bit like, you play the Zulu war game, and then the Brits pull out like lightsabers, and when they're in close combat, yeah, amazing. What a fantastic game that's going to be. So no, the French and Black Powder aren't quite like that, but they can get into combat. You can finally get in there. You can launch that assault, and they're not quite as powerful as you might want them to be. Let's put it that way. One of the things I do like about the French, though, is that they can have combined grenadier battalions. Now, this is a doctrine that sometimes they use, sometimes they didn't. So you as the player genuinely have the choice on that one. So that's quite a nice one as well. They also have access to a humongous range of allies as well. So if you like lancers, but you want really, really good lancers, then it's time to get Polish. If you want some light cavalry, but you want some kind of funky light cavalry, then you can look at the Bavarians for some chevalier, or you can look at for some cuirassiers, but cuirassiers are a bit boring. Well, you can go for carabineers, something like that. So the French have got a huge width of troops out there, but they are still none of their troops are particularly outstanding. They also don't have riflemen as well, which is not necessarily a huge problem, but it is worth pointing out. So for me, the top of B tier is Pour la France. Poor indeed, but that's where I think they belong. So now we go up into A tier. Now, if the French were at the top of B tier, the bottom of A tier for me is the Imperial Guard of the French. Now, this is fine. You can combine the two of them, and you're probably nosing into A tier there. But for me, the Imperial Guard are, as a separate army, are very good. They're very, very expensive. If you're playing a points game, you seriously do not get many of them. Even if you say, well, I'm going to bulk up the numbers with the Young Guard, you still don't get many of those either. But they are all superb troops. Even the Young Guard, which, you could argue, I've argued they should actually be the best of the Guard. But you could argue they're the lowest of the Guard. Even their stats are very impressive. They've got the standard stats, but they have the Elite 5+. This means that your opponents are fishing for those sixes. A third of the time, it's not going to matter. And you can have plenty of them Unless you're playing points, in which case you don't have very many of them at all. The middle guard are, as you would assume, better. They've got the 7 in hand-to-hand combat, shooting 4 shots, morale 3+, stamina 3+ as well. I would suggest if you are going to go with Fusiliers and the Young Guard, for argument's sake, you're going to have, I don't know, 5 units of Young Guard. You're probably better off having 3 units of Middle Guard. But that's just me. And then, of course, you've got the Grognards, the Ancients, the Immortals, the bravest of the brave. You've got the Old Guard Grenadiers. Now, these guys are absolutely insane. They've got all the special rules. They've got pas de charge, reliable, elite 3+. Elite 3+ is crazy. Tough fighter, 4 shots, 8 attacks in hand-to-hand combat, stamina of 4, morale of 3. Stick them in a column. They've got a 2+ save, and they've got to get through 4 stamina to shake them. They are absolute animals. They're really, really good. You've also got some smaller units that can support them as well. The Sailors of the Guard, Engineers of the Guard, that's all good fun. But one of the reasons why I place them so high is, despite being an elite guard formation, they have a full suite of cavalry options as well. So you've got Chasseurs à Cheval of the Guard, you've got 2 Lancer units, and you've got a squadron of Mamelukes. So you've got your light cavalry fully weighed off there. Medium cavalry, you've got your Empress Dragoons, which you could take as a large unit, which obviously you do because they're awesome. And for your heavy cavalry, now they're not actually cuirassiers because they didn't wear cuirasses, but they're effectively cuirassiers because they have the 3+ morale save, 10 attacks in close combat. You've, of course, got the gods themselves, the Grenadier à Cheval. I say they've got 10 attacks. Again, they don't have 10 attacks because you add the Gendarme d'Elite to this unit and you make them a large regiment. And you will absolutely steamroller pretty much anything in the game. They are absolute monsters once they get going. Now, seeing a large unit of Grenadier à Cheval, it just does things to me. It's one of the greatest sights you can see on the tabletop, I think. They're just, their uniforms aren't that flashy, but this is what I love about them, is that they're just awesome. I love the Grenadier à Cheval. Add in the Gendarme d'Elite, and they just become such an awesome looking unit. And they will smash through pretty much anything that comes within saber range of them. So you've got some really strong, powerful troops there. You can make units large if you need to. It's a surprisingly flexible army, considering it's just guard. I would recommend that you try and bulk it out with something else if necessary. But if you just want to rock up for an evening and be like, look, I've got the French Imperial Guard, that's cool, isn't it? Let's be honest, that's pretty cool ass. Now, that is enough for the French Imperial Guard. We're going to move on to the top of Tier A. There's only 2 armies in A tier, and the top of A tier is going to be the Army of Great Britain. Now, I have waxed lyrical for what must be approaching hours on this channel about how good the British cavalry is. The British cavalry, with their gallop at anything special rule, are absolutely bananas. Now, this is one thing that I should say about the French units that I mentioned earlier on, is I will take strategy rating 8 or possibly even 9 as my cavalry commanders, because I don't have the benefit of pas de charge. The British is kind of the other way around. You want your infantry units to be better because they're not going to be in column, and your cavalry, they're going to be charged all the time. Gallop at everything gives them a bonus to charge anyway, so you can get away with having slightly worse cavalry commanders. Now, what is gallop at everything? Well, it's got a downside which I've tried to maximize in the Under Eagles to Glory pack, but even so, it's still not that much of a huge problem. You have to, you get to re-roll all of your misses when you charge. Now, because you can counter-charge in Black Powder Cavalry, you're basically always charging. Unless you do something horribly wrong, you get to re-roll all of your dice. Now, that is so unbelievably powerful that it makes British cavalry just beyond. Now, what I found with the British cavalry is, I've said this before, you can often use them to go a tier up. So the British don't have cuirassiers, but they're because they're re-rolling all the dice, they're light dragoons and hussars. They can go up against dragoons, so that's their sort of equal. They should absolutely roll any French or equivalent hussars. So they can compete with dragoons. British dragoons, they're heavy. The heavy dragoons, they can match cuirassiers. The British heavies, the household cavalry, they should beat cuirassiers. They're going to struggle when you start looking at things like grenadier or cheval, but cuirassiers they should be able to compete with. So they've got superb cavalry. Their infantry all have the special line and first fire special rule. So that means that you get to fire 4 shots when it's your first volley of the game, and you can also count as counter-charging if you want when you are being charged. Fantastic special rule. In addition to this, you have the full suite of infantry types that you would want. You've got line infantry, you've got light infantry, you've got skirmishing riflemen. So that's fantastic. You can take allies if you want lower quality troops. Now, I've not mentioned the Dutch Belgians at all in this video, and that's because they're not really their own separate army, but you can take lower quality troops that are cheaper if you're looking to spread the points a little bit more with some Dutch Belgians, or you can just keep it all British. So you've got those options there. You've also got the option for even better British infantry because you can take the Amazons, you can take the Highlanders. Now, they come with tough fighter. So there's absolutely nothing bad about the British Army whatsoever. They have no negative traits at all. There's no lacking initiative. There's no wavering. There's none of that stuff here. These guys are absolute nails. So the British, very, very strong. In addition to that, you've got a full suite of guard units as well. You've got foot guard. Now, the foot guard should really be large units. Historically, accurately, they would be large units. If you're going standard, then they've got 7 attacks in hand-to-hand combat, 4 shooting attacks. They've got morale save of 3+, and a stamina of 4. So, in close combat, they are using more dice than a French column. They've stood and shot with 4 shots, potentially 5 if it's their first shots of the game, and they're still saving on the same that the column is saving on. If you take a large unit, which you probably should do, you've got a hand-to-hand value of 1.5 French columns. You're firing 6 dice at them as they come into them if it's your first fire. So on average, you should be guaranteed that disorder as the enemy's coming in. And then you're still saving on a 3+ as well. The British foot guard are they're like the dwarves of black powder. They are going absolutely nowhere. Although having said that, I had 2 battalions advance towards the French line. One of them broke, and then the other one fled with them. So not all the time. You've also got the household cavalry as well. Not perhaps as impressive as the French Guard cavalry, but don't forget they're getting those full rerolls to hit. So there is that as well. And you've also got some funky artillery as well. You've got a full range of artillery. In addition to that, you have rockets as well, and you've got shrapnel. Now, a lot of players don't use shrapnel. It's really good at long range. You're hitting on a 5 anyway, but this just gives you 2 shots. So why on earth would you not? Oh, sorry, no. It's a medium range, isn't it? So you get an extra shot, but you're -1 to hit. Most of the time with artillery, you're looking to fish for that 6 anyway. So I think you're probably best off using shrapnel most of the time. Not all the time, but most of the time. Cavalry-wise, I've been through the cavalry. You've got a full suite. If you don't like the gallop and everything, if you want to have a bit more control over your troops, you can take cavalry that don't have gallop and everything. You can ally in some Portuguese, maybe some Belgian carabineers, although they're not going to be as good as the British cavalry. Or you could just use the ones who are as good as the British cavalry. You could just use the King's German Legion, the KGL, and you've got yourself a decent unit there. Not quite the hammer unit that the British cavalry are. So that's my... The thing is with Great Britain, they fought with their allies. You can have Portuguese, you can have Spanish, you can have Dutch Belgians if you're going for the 100 days. Brunswick, I haven't done them as a separate army. Brunswick, probably going with the Confederation of the Rhine. They're standard infantry, but yeah, so, with limited cavalry options. So as a quick bonus one for Brunswick, we'll pop those in C tier as well. So that's Great Britain, a huge suite of units, good allies, fantastic units, intrinsic, can't go wrong. They look great on the tabletop, and they stop for tea at 4 o'clock. So what more could you want from an army? Which leaves us with Super Special S tier. Now, S tier is for superior, or broken, or special, however you want to describe it. But we are now into for me, the two absolute powerhouse armies of Black Powder. The ones that stand head and shoulders above the rest. The question is, what order am I going to put them in? Well, I think at the bottom of S tier is Russia. Now, the Russians are, I think they're the second best army in the game, and there is a reason for this. They lack initiative. They suffer from -1 to hit with their shooting. They've got some serious negatives here. Don't get me wrong, they are problematic. However, if you shoot with the Russians, yeah, I mean, that's fun. If you are initiative is easing around, then yeah, okay, that's fine. Remember, troops that are lacking initiative can still charge. That is what your Russians want to be doing. They want to be going in every possible opportunity. Now, don't get me wrong, I enjoy making a firing line with my Russians as well. Usually you're fishing for a 6, so that -1 to hit doesn't hugely matter. But what I really like about the Russians, and this is why they are in S tier, is they have 2 special rules. One is universal tough fighter. Tough fighter means that you reroll one of your fails to hit in every single round of combat. Now, one of the things I like about Black Powder is I tend to find that it's more, rather than smashing through stuff, it tends to be about the gradual increase of pressure. And just that one reroll every turn can make a huge amount of difference. Everyone's got it. I don't think Cossacks do, but everyone else has got it. Tough fighter, certainly the infantry do. Tough fighter, really, really strong. The fact that it's universal across the army is really good as well. Secondly, the Russians have another special rule. I can't remember what it's called. I'm trying to find it now. Is it tough as all boots? No, it's not. It's Russian infantry withstand fire fearlessly, but their own fire is badly directed. Now, that gives them they don't get +1 to hit at close range, and they have -1 at medium or long range. That's fine. However, every Russian infantryman, or every infantry Russian unit, has an extra pip of stamina. So if we look at a general musketeer battalion, their stats are 6, 3, 4, 4. So they've got the extra stamina there as well. Because they are just an average size unit with 4 stamina, you can really pack them onto a hilltop or behind a river or something like that. They can be a real pain to get through. The Russians, you stick them somewhere, they are not going anywhere. They can, of course, form a column of companies, which is effectively a column of attack, and that means that they can get that 3-up save as well. The Russians are a pretty good army, very difficult to get out of position. They have the full suite of infantry options, even more so than most, because they have access to the Opolcheny as well. So you've got Russian line, you've got Russian Jaeger, who are their light infantry. They have sharpshooter, of course. You've got the Opolcheny militia, who are just chaff units. Really good for getting out those first fire dice from that 6th fire dice from the British Foot Guards if you're ever fighting them. But you've also got volunteer Jaegers as well. You've got Opolcheny artillery. And speaking of artillery, you've got huge amounts of artillery, including extra heavy artillery, which is very nice. You've got to love those unicorn guns, the 20-pounders. They are quite scary. Now, in the original rules, you have to deploy them on a hill. I don't think anyone actually uses that, I'm afraid. But you've got 4 dice at point-blank range, 2 dice at medium range, 2 dice at long range if you're using the unicorns. Absolutely fantastic. You gotta love a 20-pounder when you're firing it. You don't like them when they're firing at you. Most of the artillery comes with 422. It's all really good stuff. The Russian, I mean, they're large batteries basically. So the Russians' artillery is very scary, and they have the full suite of. Oh, I should also say they have combined grenadiers and they have guard infantry as well. So you've got the elite shock troops there as well, and they've got a lot of grenadiers as well. It's not just like, say, the Brits where you've got 2 units of guard. These guys have got, combined grenadiers. They've got 2 divisions of grenadiers at Borodino, for example. So there's a lot of grenadiers going around, and the guard infantry as well. There's a load of those. You've got 4 regiments of guard if you want to include the Lithuanian grenadiers and the Pavlovskis. You could just use those as regular grenadiers if you want, but you can include them as guard. So they've got 7 attacks in close combat with tough fighter, remember. Elite 3+, reliable, and valiant as well. So a good suite of special rules. You've also got Guard Jaeger as well, if you just want something a little bit different. So you've got the full suite of infantry, and cavalry-wise, you've got cavalry coming out of your ear holes. You've got lifeguard cavalry for pretty much all of the types of units. Not in 1812, but if we're just talking about the general, the army as a whole, you've got, unlike the French, you've got Guard cuirassiers, but you've also got the lifeguard dragoons, you've got lifeguard uhlans, all that stuff, but you've also got just regular uhlans. You've got Russian dragoons, you've got hussars, who have lancers, of course, so you get the best of both worlds from the hussars there. You've got mounted Jaegers, they don't have lancers, so they're sort of your general, more hussar-type troops. And you, of course, get your free Cossacks as well. Now, it's a bit unsure whether they count towards your breakpoint or not. I've just said that you just completely ignore them for breakpoint. But it could mean that, for argument's sake, you've got 2 units of cuirassiers. Suddenly, your breakpoint isn't 1. You've got those 3 Cossacks, then knocks it up to 2. The Cossacks just stay at the back of the board, and it means your opponent has to destroy both of those units of Cossacks, cuirassiers, and so on and so forth. So there's some shenanigans that you can do with the Cossacks as well that bump up the sizes of your brigades. But even that aside, shenanigans aside, you've got the options to have large regiments, 9 attacks for Russian cuirassiers. Make them large, you're looking at 11 attacks. And then suddenly, even the Grenadier à Cheval have got to be slightly concerned when they see those Russian cuirassiers thundering towards them. They also get a bonus for their charging orders, which again means that you can perhaps scrimp a little bit on their strategy ratings, which is good, because you are limited to the number of decent commanders that you can purchase. But that's okay, because you want to be using your infantry in quite a defensive role anyway. So, speaking of using your infantry in a defensive role, we come to what I think is the best army in Black Powder. Now, I'm not saying this is the best army of the Napoleonic Wars. I'm saying this is the best army in Black Powder as it stands now, until the release of the next supplement, whatever that may be, and that is the Austrians. Now, the Austrian Empire, I think, has the best army for one simple reason, and that is large units. Now, many of the other nations can take large units, but they're kind of a bit of an add-on, really. The Austrians' large units is kind of their jam. Is their default position is that their units are massive, and this means that they really do have an advantage over other nations when it comes to pretty much everything, to be honest. If we take the profile of a standard Austrian line battalion, they have 8 attacks in hand-to-hand combat, 4 for shooting, they have 4+ save, and they have a stamina of 4 as well. So they're not as stamina-able, there you go, there's a word for you, as the Russians, because although they've got the same amount of stamina, they have a much larger footprint. So the enemy could concentrate on one unit a lot easier than they can on the Russians. But because of the rules, you can only engage with one unit at a time. It means that the French columns charging in, they're a normal-sized battalion. The Austrians are firing 4 dice at their stand and shoot, potentially 5 due to their special rule. and then they've got more attacks than the column as well. So they're effectively putting out, 13 attacks to the French column 6. Now, that's not going to be looking good for the French, is it? Remember, if they are standing and shooting, they get to roll an extra dice for their first close-range shot. I'm trying to find the page in the book at the moment. It'll come to me. So with those 5 dice, again, you're really just fishing for a 6. The chances of the French taking significant casualties from that are pretty low because they are going to be saving on a 3+ anyway. I mean, you are hitting them on a 2 if you're at point-blank range. You're hitting them on 3s if you're at point-blank range. So you've got a decent chance of hitting them, but they're probably going to just shrug them off. But you're really just fishing for that 6 to disorder the charge and make the French hit you on 4s, despite the fact that they're charging. So that's what you're looking for there. You've got a really good chance of disrupting the enemy as they come in. Then you're hitting them with more attacks than they can throw back at you. So Austrians, super, super strong when it comes to defense. Attack, not quite so good. You need to make sure that you build your brigades so you've got multiple battalions of the same regiment, just because that's how that works. I'll let you. They're on page 66 of Clash of Eagles. Check that out, and it's slightly complicated, but not too much so. I'll let you read that for yourself. Now, the cavalry, again, the Austrians. Now, to be fair to the Austrians, they really did, pioneer the use of light cavalry. Hussars, of course, came from Hungary. So they have a full suite of cavalry. They've got Hussars, they've got Uhlans, they've got Dragoons, they've got Cuirassiers, they've got Chevaliers. They've got, if it goes on 4 legs, then it's in their army. No camels, unfortunately, but apart from that, they've got everything that you might need. And these are all large units again, of course. So Cuirassiers, you're looking at 11 attacks if they're a large unit. Now, one of the things that makes them even more powerful is that you can then subdivide these large units into smaller units, and they're still really, really strong units. If you have a large Cuirassier unit, you can divide them into smaller units. You'll have seen General Dan do it in the last battle report, and they're still a force to be reckoned with. The rule I was looking for earlier on to do with the Austrians, so basically they get to fire an extra dice for the first time in the game that they fire at point-blank range, and it is called Flintenkartasch. So there you go. I mean, that's almost certainly not how it's pronounced, but but they get to as I say, the first time in the game they shoot at point blank range, they get to roll an extra dice, giving them potentially 5 dice when they're standing and shooting. So it's pretty scary. As I say, the thing is with the standing and shooting, you're not necessarily looking to inflict major casualties. I mean, you could, but what you're really looking to do is you're looking to get that 6. If you put it this way, if you said, right, we're not going to roll dice, we're just going to decide what we want to happen, you can either take one of the 3 stamina off the charging Frenchman, or you can -1 from there to hits in close combat. What are you going to go for? You're obviously going to go for the -1 to their hits, aren't you? And that gives you a really good opportunity to get that. So with the Austrians, you've got a full suite of cavalry, which are large units. You can break them down into medium-sized units if you want. It just means you get twice as many. Absolutely disgusting. They're really hard to take off objectives. You've got these large units. They've got a huge amount of stamina. They've got a huge amount of firepower and close combat attacks. You do not have the full suite of infantry that you might want, though. You've got your line. You've got grenadiers. You've got Jaegers. Now, I'm actually going to argue for this being a strength with the Austrians, because the Austrians are a little bit like the French. They're sort of the reverse side of the French, in that one of the things that I said wasn't so good about the French is that you've got a huge suite of troops, but they're all just average. The Austrians have a much more reduced amount of troops, but they're all really good, and they're good because there's a lot of them. It's not necessarily the special rules that makes them good. It's not their superior tactics or anything like that. It's just the fact that there's thousands of them. That's the problem. So that's, for me, is why the Austrians are the strongest army in the game. Now, I am more than welcome for it to be argued that the Brits are better than them, or the Russians are better than the Austrians. The Austrians do struggle a little bit from having low command values, but that's not necessarily the end of the world if you play defensively. The Russians and the Austrians both are defensive armies, and that's why I think they're in S tier. If you're doing a mission where you've got to be super aggressive, well, that's probably not so good. But I think that if you were to take the Austrians and the Russians from Clash of Eagles and try and throw them off the Pratzen Heights with the French, you'd have absolutely no chance whatsoever. So that, for me, is my tier list. I hope you've enjoyed it. We've got in F tier, fail tier, we've got Naples and Spain. In D tier, we've had Westphalia. In C, we've had pretty much the whole Confederation of the Rhine plus the Duchy of Warsaw. In B tier, we've had France, Prussia, Italy have all been in there. Wrong way around. Italy, Prussia, and then France. In A tier, we had the army of Great Britain and her allies. Let's not forget them. And the Imperial Guard. And then in S tier, we've had Russia and Austria. Do you agree with my tier placements? Where would you have put the other nations? Do you think I'm blinded by my my affinity towards France? Do you think they should be lower? Do you think they should be higher? Do you think I've been overly harsh on them? Do you think my love for my Russian army has gone a bit too much? Let me know what you think in the comments down below. As I said at the beginning, I hope that this has been a bit of a fun video. I've had a real fun time going through all the armies again, and I've really enjoyed looking at them. Oh yeah, these are cool. And I've enjoyed it. I hope you guys have enjoyed listening to it. I can't believe this video's gone on for over an hour. So thank you for listening this long. This Wednesday is going to be the final live stream of the year. I might do a special birthday one, but this is going to be the final live stream of the year. So make sure you catch that. But if not, I will see you next week. I hope you've enjoyed the list. Let me know what you think about it in the comments below, and I'll see you all next time.